Good evening and welcome to the Extraordinary Executive on the 12th November 2021. I have tonight here, and it's very nice to see members of the public here and members of the opposition, and rather than just being on our own. So welcome all and sundry. My name is John Halsall. I'm the leader of the council. Here tonight is Parry Bath, the Executive Member for Environment and Leisure, Gregor Murray, the Executive Member for Resident Services, Communication and Admissions, Wayne Smith, the Executive Member for Planning and Enforcement, and Bill Sohn, the Executive Member for Neighbourhood and Communities. I have apologies from John Kaiser, Graham Howe, Pauline Jorgensen, I believe, is on time. No, maybe. Charles Margetts and Stuart Monroe. I'm supported by Susan Parsonage, who is the Chief Executive of the Council, Anne Hunter and Callum Wareham from Democratic Services, and present is also Stephen Conway, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, and Lindsay Ferris, a notable ex-leader of the Liberal Democrats. So welcome to you all. Before I move to make a short statement, I'd like to declare an interest. I'm the founder member of and a director of the Campaign for Protection of Rural Wokingham, and I'm also a member of the CPRE, which is a campaign to protect rural England. I also, given the nature of the topics tonight, I'm a resident of Remenham and the ward member for Remenham, Walgrave and Ruscombe. Are there any other declarations of interest? Nope. Okay, just a few preliminary remarks. The rate of new COVID cases within the borough has been decreasing over half term, but remains high. The current rate is 390 per 100,000. The rate within the borough remains slightly above, but very much in line with the rates across South East England and England as a whole. Most cases continue to occur within our school-age population and their parents, in line with the rest of the country. The current rate reflects the cases across the week from 28th of October to 3rd November, and therefore incorporates half term. We will continue to see a decrease in cases for another week or so, but as the school activities continue across this half term, we expect the case rate to begin to increase once again. We will work closely with our head teachers and school communities through Children's Services Task Force across the term to make schools as safe as possible. Officers across the council are working to maximise the effectiveness of the government's Plan A for our residents, ensuring people are getting tested when it's right for them to do so. We will work rapid lateral flow testing routinely when somebody's shown symptoms, and PCR testing when someone has symptoms or is in contact of a case, and encouraging subsequent isolation. We continue to work with health partners on the delivery of the vaccination programme across the borough, and are promoting the use of preventative measures such as ventilation and face coverings where appropriate. The coming weeks will see many occasions and celebrations bringing people together in the run up to Christmas. We must remain cautious and continue to employ all measures we can to make these occasions as safe as possible and keep our rates as low as we can as we head into winter. Vaccination is the most important action to promote. Please encourage anyone and everyone who is eligible to have all the vaccinations they're due. It is that time again, and we're required to produce by central government an updated local plan, which will supersede the previous one. This one runs out through to 2038, but require updates along the way to ensure it remains current and delivers the housing numbers as dictated to the Council using the government formula. Local plans are key documents which set out the strategy and associated policies for managing development. Not having a current local plan means that developers can successfully apply for planning permission anywhere. This speculative development occurs with little infrastructure and a greater housing requirement. Today is only a consultation. Please respond to the consultation either online, by email, or by post. We are seeking your views and want to hear what you want to say, but please note, extraneous actions and petitions do not form any part of the consultation. If you disagree with us, we are very interested in hearing your proposed alternatives. There are councils near here who have refused the local plan process and have had one imposed by the Ministry of Housing, and can in extreme cases of non-cooperation result in the loss of local authority right to determine planning applications. All English national parties set similar housing targets. Conservatives and Liberal Democrats both at 300,000 per annum. Local plans set out where development should go and the improvements to infrastructure that are required alongside, ensuring residents have access to facilities such as schools and green places. Our current local plan, the core strategy, was designed to manage development to 2026. It has worked well, with most of the development occurring in places where planned and being supported by millions of pounds of investment in infrastructure, including new schools, roads and green spaces. More importantly, has allowed the council to refuse and win at appeals against developers proposing unsuitable sites. Refreshing our local plan will mean our planning policies continue to be effective and will be difficult for developers to challenge with inappropriate alternative sites. Without a new plan, there will be less control over where development happens, and it will be much harder to try and improve the infrastructure alongside. A local plan must enable land to come forward to meet development needs, unless there are compelling reasons why this cannot be achieved. For housing, the government introduced a standard method which calculates the housing need for each local authority. For Woking Borough, the housing need currently calculates as 768 new homes each year. The council have engaged a leading planning barrister in England and statistician to help understand whether we could progress a case for exceptional circumstances. The outcome was that there were no compelling reasons under the current government framework to do so. Whilst the housing need is challenging, the government proposed revised to their standard method that would have more than doubled our annual requirement to over 1,600 dwellings a year. We campaigned hard and submitted robust technical challenges against the proposal, which was subsequently abandoned by the government, thankfully. To be clear, if we progress a local plan which does not enable this amount of housing expected by the government, it will not pass examination in public, bringing all the negatives of loss of control. We consulted on a draft local plan in 2020. A central plank of that plan was the creation of a garden town at Graiseley. After agreeing the plan for consultation, a change in legislation resulted in an unexpected extension of the area where emergency plans must be in place around AWE Burfield to incorporate for the first time both the area of Graiseley as well as the villages of 3 Mile Cross and Spencer's Wood. The change means that Graiseley Garden Town proposal, and therefore the strategy proposed by the plan, is no longer achievable. This came very much as a surprise, as the money for the exploratory work had come from government grant. The clear benefits of refreshing the local plan remain. We have therefore been forced to go back and consider alternative approaches. Central to our thinking on an alternative strategy has been the preference of our residents. Residents have told us through earlier consultations their preferences for the need for new housing to be met through large-scale development, where infrastructure can be provided alongside. They also wish to see use made of previously developed land, known as brownfield sites. Large-scale developments are often also the best technical solution for providing new housing in ways which respond to the challenge of climate change. They offer the opportunity to design in sustainability from the outset, including measures to lessen the need to travel by private car, so reducing our carbon footprint and impact on the environment and air quality compared to dispersed development. Large developments also allow to plan for accessible green spaces, drainage management, biodiversity enhancement, and renewable energy. The recommended alternative strategy includes available suitable sites in our town centres for development and makes an allowance for development we can reasonably expect to come forward in our towns and villages. There is, however, simply not enough available previously developed land, i.e. brownfield land, to meet the housing the government expects us to enable. It is not true to suggest there is. That solution simply doesn't exist, and progressing a plan on such a hope would fail at examination. The recommended strategy, therefore, recommends the allocation of a large new development on land between Shinfield, Arborfield, and Sindlesham, referred to as Hall Farm stroke Loddon Valley. This is the most deliverable and sustainable large development option. Others were considered, but our judgment is that this is the best opportunity. It offers the opportunity to provide homes alongside jobs with the area in proximity to the Thames Valley Science and Innovation Park. Shinfield, a key location for economic and jobs growth, the M4, and with good transport links, buses and rail. The Hall Farm Loddon Valley opportunity also allows the creation of a large, publicly accessible green space or park along the River Loddon Valley, an area currently without public access. The river corridor provides a significant opportunity for comprehensive habitat management, restoration and enhancement, improving biodiversity. The new community would be supported by a comprehensive package of infrastructure to incentivize sustainable behaviours and travel choices. This would include a framework to maximise opportunities for walking and cycling, both within the new community and between the surrounding places, and including a new connection over the M4 to early primary schools and a secondary school and neighbourhood centres. Whilst this provides for most new homes within the planned period and beyond, there is a need for development elsewhere across the borough to meet government's housing expectations. This need needs to be proportional and targeted to suitable locations. The new strategy identifies opportunities which are now available within and around our existing major developments, as well as a range of sites on the edge of other towns and villages. Local green space is an option designation that allows communities to identify and protect green areas that are of particular importance to them. The use of local green space will not be suitable in all instances. Guidance is set out in national planning policies. The draft local plan included proposals for 8 local green spaces across the borough, with only a surprising small number of areas being nominated by communities. As communities may not have recognised this opportunity, the council wrote to all the parish and town councils and amenity groups across the borough, inviting them to nominate further areas and to explain why they felt their areas were important. I'm delighted to say the response was over 100 new areas were nominated. Officers have reviewed each site against national planning policy and recommended proposing allocations of 71 out of 100 nominated new local spaces. To summarise, this is a consultation. It is to discover your views and residents' views and adopt the plan accordingly. We are both on the same side of delivering a target imposed elsewhere. We would like as many residents as possible to respond to this consultation so that we can get the next iteration right. Please respond online or by letter or by email. Channels such as petitions will not be taken into account. We are very interested in what you have to say, and if you disagree with us, what your alternatives are. As I've said before, I've been very lenient with questions to the executive and have done my best for them all to be answered. However, I would point out that the total permitted time is for 20 minutes for member questions and 30 minutes for public questions. We will try to get them all in. A questioner who has put a question in person may also put one supplementary question without notice. A supplementary question must arise directly out of the original question or the reply and must not introduce any new subject matter. I will reject a supplementary question on any grounds, on the grounds in Rule 5.4.37. Basically, a supplementary question must not be longer than 1 minute, and if I consider the questioner is making a statement, I will rule the questioner be not further heard. Thank you very much for your attention. And if I can then go to the public question time, Mr. Paul Stevens.
Good evening. Paul Stevens, Armfield and Newland Parish Councillor, Fields Neighbourhood Action Group Secretary, Chair of Arborfield Village Hall Trustees, and one of the co-authors of the Armfield and Newland Neighbourhood Plan. My question: why have Wokingham Borough Council chosen to ignore the views of local residents as expressed in the Arborfield and Barkham Neighbourhood Plan regarding the site of a new garden village at Hall Farm? I refer specifically to the following key policies: IRS 1, IRS 2, IRS 3, but also the view that Arborfield and Barkham, amongst other places, have no local need for further housing, and we have already made significant contribution to the wider need for housing through the SDL at Arborfield Garrison, otherwise known as Arborfield Green.
Good evening, Paul. This is going to be difficult looking where you're in behind me, but anyway, thank you very much for your question. The government require all local authorities to create plans to manage development in their area. A plan must enable the land to come forward to meet development needs. With regards to housing, the government introduced a standard methodology. I appreciate that John has referred to this earlier, which calculates housing need for each local authority, and Wokingham Borough's need calculates at 768 homes each year. Meeting this scale of development requires us to make some difficult decisions. We must, however, make these decisions. Not having an effective plan would mean less control over where development comes forward. It is much harder to invest in improvements to infrastructure, such as roads, schools, if development is driven by developers in an ad hoc and dispersed pattern. Through previous consultation on the local plan, the most supported approach was the development needs to be met through large-scale developments where infrastructure could be planned, funded, and provided alongside. Experience has shown us that large-scale developments are often the best solution to meeting development needs in a way that responds to sustainability challenges, including climate change. They also allow us to respond to the lessons of COVID more fully. To identify the most suitable sites for development, all area land promoted by landowners to us for potential development has been assessed. This exceeds over 300 areas. The area of land at Hall Farm / Loddon Valley is one of 3 large-scale opportunities we have considered. The others being land situated to the north of Wokingham, between the M4 and the A329M, known as Asseridge, and the land to the east of Twyford in Ruscombe Parish. At least one of these areas is required to meet the housing expectations. Following technical appraisals by our officers and external support from ACOM and discussions within the cross-party working group of councillors, the recommended strategy proposals the creation of a new sustainable community at land at Hall Farm / Loddon Valley. This is considered to be the most deliverable and sustainable strategic option to meet the borough needs required for our plan. It offers opportunity to provide homes alongside jobs, with the area the proximity to the Thames Valley Science and Innovation Park, as well as the creative media hub development, and that was approved at the council's planning committee to be resolved, and planning commission for that meeting on the 13th of October 2021. Given the potential scale of the opportunity, the vision is able to extend beyond merely the built development into the wider environment and social benefits of the community. Integral to the vision would be the creation of large, publicly accessible green space or park alongside the River Loddon Valley, which is an area currently without public access. The river corridor provides a significant opportunity for comprehensive habitat management, restoration and enhancement, improving biodiversity. I accept that any development needs to lead to change. However, the community we propose to create will be of high quality. Aspects highlighted in the proposed policy include a requirement for development to draw on and enhance its context and considerable natural assets such as hedgehogs, trees, woodland, and incorporate measures to protect and retain the permanent physical and visual sense of the separation of Arborfield Cross and Shinfield.
Can I ask a supplementary question, please? So the core strategy and the Arborfield and Barkham neighbourhood plan recognise the importance of restricting development outside the settlement boundaries or development in the countryside. Can the executive member confirm the local plan update will take account of the Arborfield and Barkham neighbourhood plan and will respect the existing settlement boundaries and the boundary of the strategic development limits, now Arborfield Green, and will not propose additional infill development between settlements or ribbon development along the Arborfield Cross Relief Road?
Without having the actual plan, I can't confirm that here now, but I will give you a written statement as to the actual area that you're referring to.
Well, Mr. Stevens, Nigel Penfold. Is there a Nigel Penfold online or here? There? No. Nigel Penfold will receive a written answer. David Lyons, virtually. Is there David Lyons on the call? Similarly, a written answer. Laura Clark. Laura Clark, please make yourself apparent. Could you ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me? I'm online.
I can hear you.
Yes, hello, good evening. Could you please explain how the impact of the proposed garden village at Hall Farm will be assessed in light of the extensive development already underway in Shinfield and Arborfield, and how any cumulative effects will be mitigated?
Good evening, Laura. A range of technical work has been undertaken to help inform all of the impacts of the proposed Hall Farm and Loddon Valley proposal. The master planning approach includes an indicative framework and infrastructure interventions, which will have been informed by the transport modelling that's been undertaken. Part of this process includes a high-level viability exercise. The transport impact of the proposal has been assessed on top of all the current local plan to the 2026 developments. With regard to the range of the potential sites, flooding modelling has also been undertaken. As I have stated in response to other questions, the new community will be supported by a comprehensive package of infrastructure to incentivise sustainability behaviours and travel choices. This will include a framework to maximise opportunities for walking and cycling, both within the new community and between the surrounding places, including connection over the M4 to Early, primary schools and secondary schools, and neighbourhood centres. Notwithstanding the assessment undertaken to support the plan making process, a future planning application would require further detailed modelling. This would help refine our assessment and the necessary infrastructure packages that are required.
Do you have a supplementary, Laura?
Yes. Just could you explain if any additional or extra considerations will be included in that plan, and if there's any specific mitigations because of the proximity of the developments in the areas of Shinfield and Arborfield?
I don't actually. Could you just repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, I'm asking if there's going to be any extra considerations or additional considerations in light of the proximity, and whether there's going to be any extra mitigations because of that proximity to Shinfield and Arborfield.
Well, as I said just in my statement, there are this is just an outline proposal at consultation. We haven't got anywhere near that stage, and once we get closer, if it goes through consultation, this is classed as regulation 18. If it gets to regulation 19, you've still got to go through the inspector, and then you've got to go through outline planning. So at that point, all of those considerations will be taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colin Watts, I believe you're here. Is that right?
Good evening. My question is, the scale of the proposed Hall Farm Loddon Valley SDL is quite extraordinary. It's less than 2 years since an application for just a single dwelling within this area was refused, in part because, and I quote, of the effect of the proposal upon the character of the countryside, yet now 4,500 homes were being proposed in the same area. Why was the character of the countryside important in 2019, but it is not important in these proposals in 2021?
Good evening, Colin. Planning law requires applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The development plan currently comprises of our adopted core strategy and managing development delivery plans, as well known as the Berkshire local plans covering minerals and waste matters. The application you reference was made against our adopted policies, which did not support the proposed development. What we are considering now is different. As I've explained in previous answers, the local plan will enable land to come forward to meet the development needs, which in the case of housing are set out by government, unless there is a compelling reason why this cannot be achieved. We have engaged the local planning barrister, I appreciate that this was referred to earlier by John, and a statistician, but there was no compelling reasons we could progress. We are therefore required to make some very difficult decisions. Our current local plans direct development towards specific places. This would work well, providing the certainty of where change is expected and allow us to plan for infrastructure alongside. We would need to decide where to direct development once again. This means we need to consider areas where we have previously steered development away from, because there were better options at the time. Sometimes these areas will not be the best option to any of us.
I just wonder, do you actually agree, though, that these proposals will have a significant impact on the character of the countryside?
Well, I think it's how you how you build the development. I mean, we've built some very nice SDLs. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Arborfield is one, or not you mentioned, but somebody mentioned it. We've got a SDL Arborfield. I think it's all to do with how you develop the site and how you build that and make sure it's a sustainable place to live.
Mike Hurd, are you online? No.
John, I am online.
You are?
But I wrote to the Democratic Services to withdraw my question because Gary Cowan has asked a similar question.
Okay, thank you, Mike. James Burgess.
Good evening, thank you. This is on behalf of Michael Holstock. Are the council aware that 4.6 hectares of land forming part of the original Bentley Lane Piggeries, which is adjacent to the council's own land at Winnersh Farms, is capable of delivering 100+ housing units? and of being accessed and delivered without any impediment from flooding, and aware of the community benefits of including this land in a wider application as previously proposed.
Good evening. All sites promoted for potential development by landowners and developers has been assessed and considered in line with the requirements of national planning policy. The officer's technical assessments of all the sites will be published as part of the recommended consultation. With regards to the land you refer, I assume you are referring to the land to the east of Blackberry Gardens between it and the A329M. The Environment Agency flood maps show a large part of this area is in a high risk of flood. The part of the land behind this adjacent to the A329M slip road, where account would need to be taken to the levels of noise. Linking this land into the draft allocated site would require bridging the area liable to flood at a considerable cost. The consultation provides everyone the opportunity to respond to our technical assessments. Where someone disagrees with the flood data, clear evidence in the form of a flood map challenge would need to be presented and agreed by the Environment Agency.
Mike, if you're still there, I'm told that Gary Cowan's not attending.
Oh, sorry. Supplementary.
I'm sorry. You've got a supplementary. I do apologise.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
no supplementary.
I'm not permitted to do so.
Okay. Mike, I'm told that Gary Cowan is not attending. So do you want to ask your question?
Certainly, John. My question really was around whether sites in Hurst were considered as part of the strategy, given the close proximity of rail links. I'm thinking of Twyford Station and the new rail links that are coming online. Because in Arborfield, quite a lot of the current housing relates to commuters to London.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening.
Good evening. 3 large-scale opportunities were identified across the borough. Sorry if you've already heard this, but land to the south of the M4 between Shinfield, Alberfield and Sindlesham, known as Hall Farm, and Loddon Valley, the site that you're referring to. Land situated to the north of Woking between M4 and the A329M in the parish of Hurst, and land to the east of Twyford in the Ruscombe parish. Following a technical appraisal by officers, the recommended strategy proposes the creation of the new sustainable community at Hall Farm, Loddon Valley opportunity. This is considered to be the most deliverable and sustainable strategic option. I have outlined previously the benefits in other questions, so I won't repeat them here, but I'm more than happy to send them to you. Land promoted elsewhere in the borough, including other areas of land promoted in Hurst, are not large enough to support the comprehensive package of infrastructure necessary to create a new sustainable community.
Do you have something, Mike?
No, I don't, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Townsend. No. Jim Murphy. Jim? No. Okay. Thank you very much. And that concludes the public questions. Then I can move to members' questions. Gary Cowan's not here, so he'll get a written answer. Andrew Mickleborough. Andrew, I can see you are here. Fire away.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Given the imperative of tackling our climate emergency, can you please provide a couple of illustrative examples of how proposals in the revised growth strategy have been informed by the climate emergency?
Good evening, Andrew. The draft local plan we consulted on in 2020 included a suite of policies designed to manage the impacts of development. These included policies to require net carbon zero developments, biodiversity net gain, affordable housing, quality design, health and well-being, and walking and cycling. Whilst these policies are not of the proposed consultation, we propose to continue our broad approach, and we hope to receive support from the government-appointed inspector who will examine our plan. Central to the recommended revised growth strategy, it is the wish to manage development in the best option we have to respond to the challenge of climate change and minimise any impacts on the environment. This is best achieved through large-scale developments, which offer the opportunity in design from sustainability from the outset, which include measures to lessen travel by the private car, so reducing our carbon footprint and the impact on the environment and air quality compared to dispersed development. Large developments also allow to plan for accessible green spaces, drainage management, biodiversity enhancements, and renewable energy. Thank you, sorry.
Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Wayne, for that answer. There are, of course, so many examples that could have been referred to, and you cited many of them. But I'd like to drill down specifically on the matter of flooding. There are many reasons why the risks of flooding in our borough will grow significantly during the time period covered by the revised growth strategy and beyond. The reasons include the already evident increase in frequency and severity of extreme weather events locally that's also being experienced around the world, and the contribution of some existing as well as already planned housing developments to more flooding within our borough. Do you have any concerns that building on any of the sites identified in this revised growth strategy could contribute to flooding in any of these sites and or further afield?
Well, I think, as I've said earlier, Andrew, we have a very experienced strategic planning team at Wokingham. But not only that, we have put our plans out to AECOM, and they've got some very experienced, and they're not just experienced locally, they're experienced across the country. And they're suggesting to us as a group that these are the best sites. Now, if in any of that they were suggesting that these sites are at risk of flooding, then obviously we would have to take that into major consideration. So my answer would be that's not something that's been brought to my attention, so no.
Thank you.
Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Thank you very much, John. Good evening, everyone. The question is for you, Wayne, and it perhaps might come as a gentle relief. My question really is about the consultation process. The second draft of the local plan includes many sites that appeared in the first draft. Will the comments made by residents on those sites in the first consultation be carried forward, or do they need to submit comments again as part of this second consultation?
Evening, Stephen. The draft local plan we consulted on, you're quite right, in 2020 proposed 21 smaller sites for residential mixed development. Officers have reviewed all those comments. You may be aware after that we produced a document which was a draft document on the response to all the consultation, and recommended that all the sites are retained within this revised growth strategy. In some circumstances, the indicated minimum capacity has been changed to reflect the constraints or pursue opportunities for higher densities. The consultation will be supported by an updated assessment of all sites across the borough. I would encourage everyone to review the updated assessment and to respond to the consultation.
Thank you for that. That's very much the advice I would give them too. Further to this question on the process of consultation, given that many people will want to comment on the new draft, will the executive agree to extend the consultation period by a week to the 24th of January? I ask this because much of the consultation period coincides with the run-up to Christmas, Christmas itself and the New Year. Given that last year Christmas was notoriously cancelled, many of our residents will understandably be focusing on family get-togethers for much of December and into early January. So an additional week will provide some compensation for Christmas distractions.
I don't think that will be an issue. It was a 6-week consultation. We extended it to 8 weeks to go from the 22nd of November to the 17th of January. But I don't think, I'm looking at John, but I'm not expecting him to, I'm not putting you on the spot. I don't think that would be an issue.
Participate, which is what we want, surely.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll come to that before I bring the agenda item on about the extra stuff that we are doing. And this time, what we've not done before is we've notified people of this meeting tonight to every household in the borough. I don't know if you've got you had yours delivered. So,
I did indeed.
Yes. So we're trying to get out there as wide and as broad as we can.
Indeed. Yes. Just very quickly, can I just say, Graham slipped in after we'd started. John declared an interest as a director of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural Wokingham. I believe Graham is also a director, and I wonder whether he might want to add his name to the declarations of interest before any votes are taken.
I didn't realise he'd slipped in, actually.
You're quite right, Stephen, and it should be so declared.
Thank you. Coming back to your previous statement, Stephen, we wish to have as a greater response as we possibly can to the consultation. It is a consultation. We are doing it to gather intelligence and to understand the wishes of our residents. So the higher the level of consultation, the better, really. But I would add, again, that petitions and other demonstrations really aren't part of the response to the consultation. Lindsay, how very nice to see you.
Good evening, all. There are a total of 15,513 homes within the consultation to cover the period of the draft local plan up to 2036, or is it 38? This is extremely close to the number required within the time frame. Can you advise how the council would proceed if a significant number of the housing developments being proposed received significant objections?
Evening, Lindsay. Yes, it is 38, not 36. The figure of 15,513 homes is the minimum number of homes required by the government's standard method over that plan period. The revised growth strategy identifies a land supply which reasonably exceeds this, providing some flexibility for delivery. The clear benefits of refreshing our local plan, a new plan, will mean our planning policies will continue to be effective. Without a plan, there will be less control over where development happens, meaning it is likely to come forward in poorly located places. It will be much harder to try and improve the infrastructure alongside it. As you know, if we progress a local plan which does not meet the government's housing expectation, it will not pass the examination in public. We have taken advice on this from a leading barrister, and I'm sorry I have mentioned this before, and a statistician expert. We will, of course, review all the comments we received to the consultation and amend our strategy if necessary. However, let us be clear, there is little scope to remove land from the strategy without having to find suitable land elsewhere. If somebody wishes to object to a particular site, it is equally important for them to tell us where they would support building new homes to meet our plan.
Yes, I have a supplementary. It would appear that major objections have already started even before the consultation has commenced, in particular with a major petition relating to the Pinewood site in Wokingham Without. Can the exec member explain why this popular community site was included for housing in this consultation when many other community sites have been recommended for local green open space status?
I'm glad you brought that up, Lindsay, because I was going to come to that later. The point that you're referring to, and if you don't mind, I will read it because it's very important, because like you, I'm very frustrated at what's being put out on social media. Page 44 6.17. In addition to the sites identified above, it is proposed to allocate Pinewood, Old Wokingham Road for self-funded regeneration. Pinewood accommodates a number of valued community facilities, but the premises on the site are of very quality and they would benefit from investment. Proposals would be drawn up in the consultation with existing occupiers. Some of the income from any housing, and I say any housing, achieved on this site would be invested back into the community facilities on site, or if appropriate, reallocation to a new home. So I don't read that as we're going to build all over that site. I read that we're going to plough back money into areas, and I know it's a very valuable site, and we want to keep it, and we want to look after that site. So I think it's I'm amazed of what's been put out on Facebook. Absolutely amazed.
Thank you. Jim Fruin.
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Can you hear?
Fire away, we can hear perfectly.
Okay. As mentioned tonight in your feedback and in the documentation sent to residents, can the executive please explain why the impact of the local plan for Graiseley proposal by the AWE planning exclusion zone expansion was unexpected?
Evening, Jim.
Evening.
AWE Burfield is a licensed nuclear installation within adjoining local authority of West Berkshire District, and I know you know that. The Graiseley Town proposal was devised in partnership with West Berkshire District Council and Reading Borough Council, and with the capacity funding from Homes England. Graiseley was awarded the garden city status by the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. All the master planning process involved representatives from AWE. At the time of researching this option, the land were master planning placed building outside the detailed emergency planning zone, where the emergency planning arrangements are required in case of an incident. Whilst we are aware of a change in legislation requiring a view of all arrangements for nuclear licence installations in the country, we were only advised that there was a potential change at AWRE when we were verbally informed of such by an officer of West Berkshire Council in December 2019. Until then, we were entirely unaware, and even at that point, the consequences were unknown given the little information we were provided with. The formal change to the detailed emergency planning zone was confirmed by West Berkshire Council on the 12th of March. A subsequent legal challenge was lodged by the affected landowners. This was dismissed by the courts on the 12th of February this year.
All right, so supplementary if I can, Wayne. I've been reliably informed that the council were informed in 2018 of the fact that the Ministry of Defence would actually object to development in that area. So is that information wrong? If you could send me those dates, it would help, and I could check.
Jim, can I say that your reliably informed was unreliable?
If Wayne could send me those dates, John, that would be good.
And I can say that we were receiving funding from the government to proceed with the Garden Village in 2019. And I was here on the 23rd of December, just packing up my things when somebody from West Berkshire, 23rd of December 2019, at midday or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when somebody from West Berkshire came along and said there was a problem, but the problem was not specific, and we were held to secrecy. In fact, I wasn't supposed to know. So no, it's not true. It came as a real surprise to us, and we fought it for 3 or 4, 5 months to make sure that it was right. And it was only when the MOD was asked and asked and asked again by politicians and officers that they then said, we will object and definitively to anything. So it's not true.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Rachel, are you there somewhere in the ether?
I am indeed. Can you hear me?
How lovely to see you. Good evening.
Good evening. It's clear that residents need the necessary infrastructure in place earlier rather than later. You've miserably failed to get the infrastructure in place before the houses are occupied under the current local plan. What can you point to, please, in this new document that will get the infrastructure in place next time?
Good evening. Funding for infrastructure in the UK is paid to councils after the commencement of development, whether this is via S106 or SIL. It is therefore remarkable that Wokingham Borough Council has forward funded and delivered much of the 2010 core strategy local plans, which runs to 2026. £574 million worth of infrastructure programme as early as it's been brought forward and it's been delivered directly. Not only is this programme of massive scale, it has also been incredibly successful in transforming the capability of the council so that it is recognised externally as a delivering authority. The status was recognised in 2016 by a peer review, where the final report, which said, Wokingham is a department of communities and local government go to the example of successful delivery of strategic housing development accompanied by infrastructure to create sustainable communities. This is far from the norm. WBC has demonstrated a strong vision in this area of activity, coupled with the leadership and commitment to achieving that vision. And quite rightly, the officers and members of the council are proud of what they have been achieving to date and what's in train. Clearly, we would like always to have done more sooner. However, I expect the current peer review to have similar findings because the council's performance on infrastructure delivery is spectacular on a national scale. And it's regrettable that it's still more widely understood, particularly within Wokingham itself. The highlights of our programme are £250 million of highways initiatives, the Eastern Shinfield Relief Road completed early, the Northern Distributor almost complete, and the Copped Beach section was due after 2026. Arborfield Cross Relief Road completed early, the 9 Mile Ride extension half complete and the other in hand, the Station Link Road early, Mere Oak Park and Ride complete, Thames Valley Park and Ride complete, Winnish Park and Ride in design, Barkham Bridge widening. 226 million of community sports and leisure initiatives, 110 hectares of new public accessible green space, country parks and play areas completed and an extra 130 hectares to come. 20 miles of greenways, now many kilometres completed and many more kilometres in design. 12.5 hectares comprising around 400 new community allotments. California Country Destination Play Area completed. Dinton Activity Centre completed. Cantley Destination Play Area in design. Finchampstead Designation Play Area. Sports Hub at Rice Green completed. Sports Hub at Arborfield completed. Sports Hub at Grays Farm in design. Bournemouth Leisure Centre rebuild completed. 5 community centres at Shinfield, Matthews Green, South Wokingham, Arborfield and Montague Park. 98 million of schools initiatives, 1 secondary and 7 primary, Arborfield Secondary early, Montague Park Primary early, Shinfield West early, North Arborfield Primary early, Matthews Green Primary under construction, 3 primary schools to come at Spencer's Wood, South Wokingham and South Arborfield when they are needed. The route to success has been the delivery capability of Wokingham Borough Council of combined one of the highest SIL rates in the country, as well as strategic planning which is fit for purpose. We have no initiative of changing this formula in the new plan other than to build the existing policy capability and continue with our delivery successes.
Do you have a supplementary, Rachel?
Yes, I do. To fight the climate crisis, we need full local services, including doctors and schools, local employment and good public transport links, as well as cycle routes. How does what you're proposing provide any of these things?
I think it's very clear, Rachel. You know, I read your statement where it says that we're not providing infrastructure and we failed miserably. From what I've just read out, we're not failing miserably, and all of those items will be taken consideration as we move forward with this plan and all the work that Gregor's doing on the climate emergency.
May I just add, Rachel, that we have no capability of increasing the number of medical centres or GPs. It is not within our hands. We are entreating them to do better, but that's all we can do.
I appreciate that because I sit on the HOSC, but we do need to be working closely with the commissioning group in order to get these facilities in, because people in Wokingham simply can't get a doctor's appointment now.
No, I agree.
I agree, and I'm corresponding with ministers and others on a weekly basis, as is Charles Margetts, as is the executive member for adult services. But we can't force them, and we would place medical facilities if we could, but we're not allowed. It's a monopoly of GPs. So thank you, Rachel. Jackie Rance. Jackie? No. Peter Dennis.
Yeah. This is for Wayne probably. How does the local plan update with the proposed sites within it impact current and forthcoming planning applications on those sites, especially ones where prior applications have been rejected?
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Peter.
Okay.
Planning law requires applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. The development plan currently comprises of our adopted core strategy and managing development delivery local plans, as well as the Berkshire local plans covering minerals and waste. Weight may be placed on emerging plans according to their stage of preparation. Emerging plans at consultative stage attract no or very limited weight. Plans which are further progressed attract more weight, with potentially significant weight when will be placed on plans which have been submitted for examination or where the inspector has reported, depending on the context. We are at the consultative stage in the planning making process, so as such, I would not expect the recommended consultation to have in itself carry more than limited weight when determining future planning applications.
Okay, thank you. Just to be clear on that, with any planning application that is currently going through the process right now, then this proposed planning local plan update will have no weight with it then, because it hasn't reached the consultation?
Yes, so it will be our adopted policies as they stand right now.
Okay, thank you.
Is David Lyons just appeared? No, okay, thank you very much. That concludes the members' questions as well. Thank you very much. So moving on to the business of the night. Wayne.
Yes. I think we've made lots of reference this evening to various items that have come through the various questions. I would like to just go through the consultation process, because that's exactly what this is, and that's why we're here for this evening, to get approval for this process that hopefully will start on Monday, the 22nd of November. So that process, for those following online or looking at the book, is page 11. The consultation will involve the following: notification of all those on the existing planning policy consultation database, notification to all those people and organisations registered on our major development sites, vulnerable groups and information databases, making the revised growth strategy document available on the council's website, and it will be available outside in reception at our offices here, making a summary of the newsletter available on the council's website, distributing a postcard of notification. As I said earlier, all residents should have received one of these, notifying them of this part of the process, i.e. the executive this evening. There will be another postcard going out, and that will be also signalling the events that are going to be taking place. We will obviously be using social media and the traditional method to promote the consultation. We will be holding 6 engagement events, including 2 in person, and they will be staffed with experts across all areas, and there will be 4 virtual events in keeping with the revised strategy and growth strategy. There will also be an event for town and parish councils next Wednesday evening. You made reference to it earlier, John, that in the original, well, I should say the plan that we put forward last February, there were a handful of local green spaces. Now there are 70 plus in this document. The other thing I do want to stress is please don't underestimate the time that officers have worked to try and to find these so-called brownfield sites that apparently exist all over Wokingham Borough. I can assure you they don't. Where brownfield sites do exist, they are valuable employment. And when you approach various owners of such sites, they are not the sites that they would give up for housing, because they are sites that are more valuable for employment. We are not blessed with lots of brownfield sites, and I would urge any resident, if they are aware of brownfield sites that we haven't reviewed or looked at, I would urge them to come forward and let us know about those, because we have been trying now for many years and we can't find them. I'll bring the executive back to the recommendation. But before I do that, obviously.
Sorry, can I just quickly ask, are you going to amend on page 11 the date from 17th to the 24th of January?
Not sure you're supposed to intervene at this point, Stephen.
It won't be lost, Stephen. Right, so question.
Any questions from members of the executive? No. Then you can read the recommendation and assure Stephen that we will amend the consultation end date.
So recommendation: agree the local plan revised growth strategy consultation document as set out in the enclosure 1 to the report for the consultation. Agrees the consultation framework as set out in the report. Agree the minor changes to the content of the local plan update, including the 24th. Revised growth strategy consultation document and the production of studies and materials produced to support the consultation to be delegated to the Director of Place and Growth and consultation with the Executive Member for Planning and Enforcement.
Okay, all those in favour? So it's carried unanimously. That concludes the business. And may I thank you all for coming tonight on a Friday evening, particularly the members of the public, which I'm very grateful. and particularly the members of the opposition. Thank you very much, and have a really nice weekend, all of you, including the officer support, which I'm grateful for as well. Thank you.